So the next guy that we are going to get into is Brandon Aiyuk. Recently, Hitman, on your guys' show, the Shocking Stats episode, you guys were buying or selling Brandon Aiyuk as a top 24 running back, and you were actually the only one who bought that.
Wide receiver.
Curious, because we like Brandon Aiyuk, the talent, in a big way. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's Kittle and Debo, with Kittle being the predominant target there. What do you think about Brandon Aiyuk having a seat at the players' ball?
Man, he is so difficult. He is unbelievably difficult to gauge what had happened, because you have your sample of him playing with the whole team with the full allotment of weapons is very, very limited. The 49ers were right drafting him in the first round. He was a very questionable call at that time if he felt like the scraps of those first round wide receivers, but they were right. Aiyuk was great for the team. He absolutely came through. He was a stud. Aiyuk, unfortunately, has the shadow of Justin Jefferson cast over everything that he did, because if Jefferson was 70% of what he was last year, people would be freaking out about what Brandon Aiyuk did. I mean, he was a waiver wire sensation. He was incredibly steady, very consistent. But the final taste, the last bite of the Aiyuk pie, cereal, whatever you ate, you took a bite. You went, oh, it's terrible, because George Kittle came back and Brandon Aiyuk did absolutely nothing, and that was a swift punch to the gut reminder that this is George Kittle's team. He is the number one option in the passing game, and he had not been around. And we have so many anecdotes and situations where we have seen the wide receiver 2 or 3 thrust into the limelight, and you're so sure, oh, well, look how well they produced. They clearly have earned the coach's trust. We go to all those narratives, and then the coach is like, yeah, but those guys are better, so I'm going to go right back to those guys. And Debo is Debo better than Aiyuk? I don't know. Does Coach Shanahan? The bigger question is, I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm just some stupid guy with a beard who talks about fantasy football. Does Coach Shanahan think Debo is better than Aiyuk? That's the question. And I would say he probably does, but I don't know that for sure. Does he think George Kittle is better? 100%. So we know that the targets will not be what they were when George Kittle was off the field. So it seems right now that people are responding appropriately, but what at least you do have the evidence of is the target, or the talent and the scheme fit. It is there for Aiyuk. If he is called upon, he's gonna be great. So as long as you don't overreach for someone who may take a step down to, at the best, being number 2, he might be number 3. As long as you don't overreach with that knowledge behind your transaction, then you're okay with Aiyuk.
For sure, yeah, and I think for I can probably speak for Ty when I say that we prefer Aiyuk over Debo. I personally think he adds what Debo adds, plus he can do a little bit more down the field than Debo will. I think what you said about the coaching staff and who they like better and who they think is better is extremely important there, but just because this is really run heavy, the San Francisco offense, and they're gonna run 2 or 3 running backs and not have a whole big passing pie for these guys. So sure. I think that was really well said. I actually wonder, one more follow-up on that is, does your confidence in those pass catchers change if San Francisco was to, say, go out and get a better quarterback, like say a Deshaun Watson, like it's been rumored? I think that's going to be tough for them on the cap. But even maybe like a Sam Darnold, who isn't necessarily near Deshaun Watson's level, but he is kind of young and he's got some tools that Shanahan can work with. So do you think that Shanahan would open that offense up? Or do you think this is just kind of what his offense is? Because we saw that outlier with the Falcons when he was there. But aside from that, he's had garbage quarterbacks, and so it seems like
Well,
he's
hey,
tailored his offenses that way.
You need to apologize to my man Kirk Cousins.
Sorry. Okay, yeah, that was pretty strong to say garbage. It was early in Cousins' career, so I apologize, Kirk.
Kirk Cousins was a monster. I
He
don't
was
remember
good
if he
in-
led
he
the
was
league
good
in
there.
passing or if
That's right.
he was right there. I mean, Kirk Cousins was airing it out, man.
That's true. That's
I
true.
think he had D-jacks and stuff, so that changes how you call an offense. Kyle Shanahan, he's a good coach. He is a smart coach, and he doesn't. He's not. This will sound like I'm putting him on blast, but he's not Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians takes his scheme and he just shoves it down the throats of whoever's on the field. It worked out this year it's worked out a lot for Bruce, to be fair to his scheme, but it's his scheme. It's his scheme first, players second. And Kyle Shanahan's like, okay, these are the guys that I have. These are the skills that they have. I'm going to go with that. So he's a different coach. So if he has, it honestly doesn't matter to me really who the quarterback is.
Right.
That if Deshaun Watson went over to San Francisco, I wouldn't freak out about Brandon Aiyuk. George Kittle would just stay at tight end too. I wouldn't overstep and be like, "What? This is it. George Kittle has taken over Travis Kelce as the tight end one." It's like maybe he does, but that's not a bet that I'm willing to make. So it honestly it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for me, which is a weird thing to say because quarterback is the most important position in all of sports.
Sure. And there's very few coaches you're going to say that about too. And I like how you put that about Bruce Arians, because as a Cardinals fan, you endured a lot of that. Luckily, he had Carson Palmer in that rocket arm. But yeah, the Kangol Killa, we like to call him. It's
nice.
It's his way or the highway for sure.
Yeah, and like even with Palmer, it didn't work very well that first year.
Yeah, for sure.
Second year was fantastic, but the first year it didn't work. And Bruce was just like, I don't care. Figure it out.